Hello everybody, and welcome to this video of myself and Simon Bates.
Hello.
And we are going to look at three Yamaha saxophones, the student Yamaha 280, the intermediate Yamaha 480, and the professional Yamaha 62. So why have we picked these? Well, because a lot of people ask us the differences from a technical point of view and also from a playing point of view. And frankly, because they're three of the most popular saxophones in the world, in fact, without going overboard, that's true. Sold all over the place and very reliable, very easy to play, all the things that we normally associate with Yamaha in terms of excellent build quality. But hopefully what we're going to do is just talk through the technical differences as we go through them. And we've got Simon here, and he's going to play them and demonstrate them and just give his feelings as well. So let's kick off with the 280. So this is the one Simon's holding. Let's have a little listen, Simon, then we'll talk spec. So these 280s are designed for beginners, adults or children, doesn't really matter. And because of that, they're a little lighter, and there's a few other little bits of cost saving, should we say, in terms of not having heavy engraving. But just purely from a playing point of view, Simon, how do you feel that the 280s perform for people at that particular point, should we say?
Yeah, it's a very easy saxophone to play, very clear sound, very light, which is great for younger people. You know, it wouldn't feel uncomfortable to play for me even without a sling. Yeah, as you say, a few cost-cutting things. You know, the bell is kind of soldered together, you know, without the heavyweight sort of things that the later saxophones have got.
Yep.
And needle springs on the more expensive ones. These are just normal springs. So there's ways of saving money on these, but they feel great. They're a fantastic saxophone and they work really well.
And I think that's the point. They leave off certain things which are not necessary to have at this point to keep the cost down for you, because the Yamaha build experience, should we say, is a value, and that makes these slightly more expensive than some of the very cheaper student things, but they're so much more longer lasting and so much easier to play in intonation and everything else. So we should just point out they have improved the strength of this screw mechanism on the latest 280 model, and it has the low B to C sharp improved connector as well. So mechanically they're extremely strong and reliable and kind of child-proof from that point of view, but you don't get the seesaw rocker here from the C sharp to the B flat. But again, it's not going to prevent you playing that note.
No, I mean, the way the keys are angled is very good anyway. It's a good slide from B flat to C sharp. So I wouldn't worry about that particularly.
Okay, well, so let's carry on up the range, and we'll jump on up to the Yamaha 480. So Simon's got now the 480 in his hands. And a common question we get asked, obviously, is, well, what's different between the 280 and the 480? Where's my extra money going? That's obviously a straightforward sort of a question. And there's a few things which affect how it looks, and there's a few things that are different in how it's built, and there's a few things that therefore affect how it plays. So I'll just cover the technicals and the visuals, and then we'll get you to blow it, and we'll see what you think from a playing point of view. So just aesthetically, there is the engraving here on the bell, which, okay, doesn't make any difference to the sound, but it does just give the impression of a smarter looking instrument. And you tend to find that further up the range you get more and more engraving, and it's a costly thing to actually do, but it looks fantastic. Okay, so technical things that will actually make a difference to how you're playing. There's the seesaw mechanism here from the low C sharp to the B flat and the B flat up to the C sharp, which you don't get on the 280. That's just a standard cluster. Now, that doesn't mean it's preventative, as we've said earlier, but this does make it a little easier if you're moving at pace, which, if you're upgrading and playing higher level of music or harder music, that might become apparent. Also, you have the mechanism here on the octave key, which allows you to add in a custom neck later on, because the actual tube sits a little higher. On the 280, this version here, it's just the basic one, and it doesn't allow for the extra custom necks that you can add on. And what that does is just slightly future-proofs the 480 so that you could upgrade it, couldn't you, with a V1 or a C1. And we've done a separate video about those necks and what they do as well. Generally, though, the 480 gauge of brass is a little different. It's a little heavier, so the instrument feels a little heavier.
It definitely does, yeah.
It's a bit beefier. And also the neck design is a little bit more open, so the taper is a bit more open than on the 280. And I think what we're probably about to find is that adds up to giving you a little bit more oomph and a bit more bang for your buck from a sound point of view. But maybe, Simon, let's just have a little play and see what you think. Yeah, so slightly bigger, slightly bolder.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are some obvious differences as well. If you can see the one piece on the 280, the cages there, whereas this is kind of separated out. And things like the fork F key at the top is in line with the Yamaha professional range fork keys. The bow for the bell is much more kind of substantial. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot more weight behind it. It feels a bit heavier, but it doesn't feel
heavy.
Heavy.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. But it delivers a bigger sound, that's for sure.
And it's some of that weight behind it that delivers that bigger sound, basically. That's generally true with saxophones, if everything else is equal, and also that slight difference in the neck. So that would be stepping from the 280 to the 480. And we often say that the 480 would be a nice idea if you've maybe already had a student horn, or you've been renting one, or you've borrowed one from school, or maybe you're a clarinet or flute player coming over to sax, and you don't want to get a student instrument, you want to get something that maybe, like I said before, is a bit more long-lasting or future-proofed in terms of what you can do with the sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think arguably, if you're in a kind of adult, grown-up situation with a big, noisy band, that would give you a little bit more
It would indeed,
power,
yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to swap over, and then we're going to jump up to the 62, which is the first in the Yamaha professional range, and we're going to compare that against this 480 and sort of carry on that transition, as it were. Okay, so we're back now, and Simon's got the 62 in his hands, and I'm holding the 480. So again, let's just deal with the spec differences. There's a couple of things to say. The 62 is actually produced in the same part of the Japanese facility where they make the 82 and the 875. So essentially, you've got the most experienced technicians working on that 62 level of instruments upwards, and maybe that just brings an extra level of quality to the finishing, but also to how the instrument responds. The instruments are alive, and brass needs to be heated and annealed, and all these processes that shape it into what it is. And obviously, when you have the most experienced people doing that with the best quality raw materials, you end up with something that's very vibrant and responsive. The neck on the 62 is different to the 480. If anything, it's actually a little bit narrower in the taper, and that helps concentrate the sound and give it some real solidity, shall we say, as well. There's an extra weight to the neck mechanism, the neck screw mechanism, sorry. That's a little bit beefier and chunkier than what you get on the 480. And again, you can add the custom necks if you wish to. But the main difference on the tube as well is that on the 62, you have these ribs or integral plates that run down the saxophone, and they allow the pillars, which are where your keys are held between two pillars. The pillars go onto the plate, and the brass plate then sits onto the body. So it adds some rigidity to the actual core construction, which means if you bang it or knock it, it's going to be a little bit stronger. It also adds weight, again, like we talked about, all through this journey from 280 up to 62. That addition of weight and solidity gives addition of weight to the sound as well.
Yeah.
Engraving as well, Simon, on the 62, isn't it? It's a little bit bigger there.
Yeah, and of course it's got the posh needle springs.
It does. It has the blue needle springs instead of the standard sort of steel things. So there are a few little mechanical differences and pad quality differences and things like that. But fundamentally, it's the go-to first start of professional level 62. And maybe let's have a little listen, Simon, and then you can give us your thoughts about maybe what it's adding to what the other two can already do. So, I mean, just sitting here, it feels like there's a little more everything, sparkle, bass,
Yeah. You can push it further. It just goes exactly where you want it to go. Not that, you know, the others don't, but, you know, you can really push this and get exactly what you want about it. I mean, we have talked in previous videos about it being a very versatile saxophone. And I think that's it. You know, it's a saxophone that's capable of playing in any style, whatever you want to do, whether it's classical, pop, jazz, you know, it's all going to work.
Yeah. And intonation-wise, the 62 is now absolutely spot on. I think some of that neck design has helped with that a little bit. Some of the previous ones with the G1, where it's more open, people were struggling a bit more, simply because the taper was bigger and it makes that landing zone for intonation a bit wider. But they've managed to balance just narrowing that in a bit with opening up the actual body, and you get that really nice mix now, which can, you know, be quiet as a whisper or raw, and you kind of get the whole lot, like you say, Simon. So
yeah, I mean, I think they're all great saxophones to play, but this just feels and sounds a bit more classy.
Yes, yeah, there's a bit more refined, perhaps. But again, it's where you're up to. If you're buying for a kid who's starting out, you don't need to go crazy and buy a 62. I mean, you're welcome to. But the 280 actually would probably be a better idea. It's lighter, it's easy, it's easier to handle from that point of view, and it's very easy to make a nice sound on as well. Whereas when you get more experience, like Simon, obviously, or any player who's been playing a good number of years, you're used to putting more air in, and you want that flexibility to tell the musical story a little more. And if the saxophone has that vibrancy at every area of its scale, then that helps a little bit with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you say this is heavier, but it's not heavy for a saxophone. I just think the 280 is exceptionally light.
Yes, yes. So compared to some other brands, for example, which can be heavy, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's kind of a moderate weight overall, I would say, yeah. Everything's relative to what we've been discussing. So hopefully that gives you some idea on the difference between these models. Yamaha keep the layout physically very, very similar.
They do, yeah.
So you could pick up the 280 even up to the 875, which is a very expensive custom one, and it will feel physically pretty much exactly the same. And they do that so that you can transition up the range without having to make adjustments for how your fingers work, which is obviously very useful.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think Yamaha are virtually unique in that they make some very high-end saxophones, and that the technology from those filters down to the cheaper saxophones. I don't know of any other manufacturer who makes a student model and a top-range saxophone with the quality that Yamaha do.
Yeah, that's an important point. Those improvements come downriver, so to speak, don't they? Great.
Definitely.
Okay, well, Simon, let's have a little bit more on that 62 then, just to play us out if we can.